Hey crafty people, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd, because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. Over the years I've dabbled in most types of crafting, although for the past decade or so I've been doing primarily card making and mixed media art. I've recently embarked on a junk journaling journey that I hope you'll join me on. Today we're creating monochromatic Christmas cards, and I'm going to show you two variations on the same idea. Let's get crafting! So today we are going to be creating a monochromatic Christmas card, and I wanted to do a slimline card, and I cut two pieces of cardstock from 8.5 by 11 sheet. I cut it down to 7 by 8.5. I always got to double check because I have a tendency to fold my slimlines the wrong way, so that the finished card will be 8.5 by 3.5. And I did two pieces of cardstock because I've got a variation in mind. So one is going to involve coloring our images, nope, that's not the right way, with Copic markers, and the other is going to involve just using craft color cardstock for stamping our images. And if you saw the thumbnail, you know we're going to do kind of a gingerbread village for our cards. So those are our card bases. I die cut out already out of craft cardstock this scalloped slimline card base, and the dies by Heffy Doodle. But to add some more interest to that, we are going to pull out our distress inks and ink the edges. You of course can use whatever brown inks you might have. And I'm just gonna, my printer sometimes decides to stop printing in the middle of stuff, and so I have off prints, and so I'm just using that paper to keep my workspace clean. And I'm gonna grab a brush, and I grabbed Vintage Photo, and I'm just gonna ink my edges on this because it'll give it a little bit more depth. Since we're working on gingerbread cards, let's talk about holiday baking this time. So, do you do any baking for the holidays? And do you have any particular traditions regarding your baking each year? Growing up as a kid, every year we would make, I think, like 8 different kinds of cookies right around the Christmas season, and of course bring a plate full of them to school for our teachers. And I still make a bunch of cookies. Alright, so there's that, and I know it's very subtle, but I think you can see that there is definitely a difference between the inked and the uninked one. And I think, let's turn the right side. The inked one is a little bit more interesting than the uninked one, so I'm going to go ahead and ink this one as well. Before my mother passed away, what we would do is she would come over on a Saturday and we'd spend the entire day baking cookies. Now that it's just me, I usually bake like a batch a day for about a week, because I still make a whole bunch of different types of cookies. There are 5 different types of cookies that I've been making since I was a kid that have to be made every year. And then there have been a few cookies that have rotated in and out over the years. So there we go. There's both of our pieces inked. You, of course, don't have to ink if you don't want to. You don't have to use distress ink. You can use whatever ink you prefer for doing inking. I've also cut the scallop piece out of white cardstock because I want to have some hills for our town to sit in. So we will end up, once I get the town pieces cut out, we'll figure out how we want to do the hills, because I want to test run, a layout with the town pieces so that I know how big of a hill to make, kind of thing. So we're going to set these aside for a minute, and I'm going to pull out, I've already stamped and done most of the coloring on our, for my Copic colored pieces, and I've got bits and pieces for other cards on here as well. This is, I believe, Winter Village is the name of the stamp set, and the Gingerbread People are from A Creature Was Stirring, or possibly tiny gingerbread. I'm not 100% sure. I will double check and leave it listed down below which stamp sets those come from, because I'm pretty sure it's from 2 separate stamp sets. So I'll do that. But I wanted to show you how I colored these guys to keep them monochromatic but have some depth and dimension in them. And I ended up using for my gingerbread town YR27, YR24, and E18. And so I'm gonna start with this house. Please excuse me. I have been frantically cleaning my house because I do that before Thanksgiving. So I'm starting with the YR27. And in addition to the fact that I do a massive clean of my house right before Thanksgiving, that way it's clean for when I decorate for Christmas, my cousin is coming for a visit and is going to be staying with me the weekend before Thanksgiving. And now I'm going to take E18, and I am going to pull color from the one marker onto the other one so that it's just a little bit of color. So yeah, I have been doing massive cleaning of my house and I'm exhausted. Now for the door, I'm gonna start with the YR27 and then come in with the E18 and add that in to get the door darker. And just blend that. And to add some distinction between this section and that section, I'm going to come in with the YR24 and do this section with that. So my must-make Christmas cookies include Toll House chocolate chip. And I'm going to color the windows in with that as well. And then take the Y27 and blend in from the edges and under the snow. And it has to be the recipe on the Toll House chocolate chip packaging, because that's my dad's favorite. And I do make it with walnuts. And I make thimble cookies. I'm going to go really dark for the step and just go straight E18 and maybe pull in just a little YR27. But keep that very dark. For the roof, I'm going to go YR24. And then again for the chimney, I'm going to go on the darker side with the YR27 and the E18. That's pretty much how I colored all of the houses. Now, I am going to die cut these out because I have the coordinating dies, and eventually we're going to add some snow with a white pen to these guys, but I am going to go do my die cutting and I'll be right back. Now for the second card, I stamped everything on craft cardstock, and I want to add a little interest to these guys as well. So again, I'm going to take a vintage photo and I think this is makeup swab, and use it to apply ink onto our houses to just give them a little bit more depth and interest. If you're not familiar with the thimble cookies, the dough is rolled in crushed walnuts, and during the baking process you put an indent in the cookie, and then when they're cooled you fill that indent with jelly. I think I'm also going to pull in some tea dye too to blend in with the vintage photo. Next are the misnamed filbert crescents because we made them with walnuts, not filberts. Now you could also do this with colored pencils and add some brown in to the houses that way as well. We also roll them into balls as well as crescents, so really a misnomer. And if you're wondering, filberts are hazelnuts. Now, obviously, using the Q-tips is a little less precise than if I was coloring with colored pencils or Copic markers. So I'm pretty much going to go around and do that to all of the houses. I think I may come back with a little bit of water to try and lift some of the ink that I got in those windows. Next is the world's easiest cookie, which are magic cookie bars, and that's because pretty much you just dump all of the ingredients into a 9x13 pan and bake it. These are the ones made with a stick of butter, graham cracker crumbs, sweetened condensed milk, chocolate chips, walnuts, and coconut. And you may know them as like 7-layer bars, I think some people call them, but they've always been magic cookie bars in my household. And the last of the cookies from my childhood, and certainly not the least because it's my favorite cookie, are coconut logs. And these are cookies shaped kind of like fingers that you dip in melted chocolate and then dip in sprinkles or chopped walnuts or coconut. And the ironic thing here is I don't like coconut. And the dough for the cookie is actually made with coconut, but you really can't taste the coconut in the coconut log. So as long as you don't dip it in coconut, there's no coconut flavor to the coconut logs, which is kind of strange, but those have always been my favorites. Now, in recent years, we added to the list of cookies a peanut butter chocolate chip cookie that both my sister and I really like, that involves chocolate chips and peanut butter chips in it. Another cookie that we used to make regularly but has fallen off the list is the mint chocolate chip cookies. And that was due in part to the fact that mint chocolate chips became really hard to find for a while there. So we stopped making them if we couldn't find mint chocolate chips. And then it just became a habit of not making them because they're kind of a pain in the neck since you have to melt the mint chocolate chips and pour that and mix that into the dough. So it was a little bit more involved than we wanted to do. So those have fallen out of rotation. For those of you counting at home, that's 6 different types of cookies that I will be making this holiday season. Okay, so now I am going to go ahead and die cut all of these guys out, and then we'll be ready to assemble our cards. Okay, so I have cut out all of my parts. So we've got 1 gingerbread village, 2 gingerbread villages. So next step is we're going to pull over our card base and figure out how many of our gingerbread houses are going to fit across the card base. Because I think I'm going to want to do 1 wave and then will they all fit across? I think I might be able to get everybody across. Alright, I am going to go ahead and die cut some hills and we're going to see how that works. And the way I'm going to do it is, let me grab my hillside guys. Okay, so I've got my lawn fawn, slimline, stitched hillside, and forest dies. And so what I'm going to do is decide round about where I want my first cut to go and run this through. And then I will probably take this remaining piece and put our trees on and die cut it out so that I can then piece it together on our base. So let me go do that and I'll be back. Alright, so here are what our stitched hillside, which actually cuts this way, and I didn't line that up right, but that's okay. It's still gonna work. We're still gonna have the stitching design. And then I cut from what was left after I cut this piece, the piece with the trees. So we're just gonna go ahead and glue this down. We're gonna make sure we line up our piece with the scallops on the bottom. And then we'll add our tree piece. And I'll add some glue to the trees. And I'm using art glitter glue. As always, you can use whatever glue you would prefer. The nice thing about art glitter glue is I've got the fine tip on it, so I can do a little bit of glue on the trees. And this is gonna slot right into, let's start on this side. Where we've got the whole scallop, and it's just gonna slot in on here. And then stick our trees down. And now let's add our gingerbread houses. So to recap, this year I'll be making Toll House chocolate chip, peanut butter chocolate chip, thimble cookies, filbert crescents, coconut logs, and magic cookie bars, but no gingerbread. Add some gingerbread trees to our forest. And a gingerbread person or two to town. I like that, so we're gonna just start gluing down. And this year I will be making some peppermint fudge cupcakes to take to a holiday luncheon at work. So I'll be going into the office for that this year. And this is a recipe that a friend of mine made many years ago, and it's an Epicurious cake recipe for, it's I think a peppermint fudge cake. And the first time she made it, the mousse didn't set properly, so the cake like slid apart, and thus it became known as peppermint mess cake. The first time I made it, I had the same problem with it sliding apart. The next year that I made it, I put it in a trifle dish, which made it easier to assemble, but the slices were a little too rich for everyone. So then I tried making it as cupcakes, which went over really well, as the ratio of fillings and cake was a lot better than in the trifle dish. Now I want to add some snow to those buildings, so I'm going to use Uniball Signo white pen. And just kind of add some white. I've also made it as in a cream puff version, and in my favorite version of all, as mini chocolate bread puddings, which are so very tasty. And I'm gonna set this, actually let's go, I'm gonna set this aside for a sec, and we're gonna assemble this one, pretty much doing the same thing we did for the other guy. And I will bake some kind of dessert for Christmas, but I don't know what that's going to be just yet. So leave me a comment down below and let me know if you have any holiday baking traditions that you're going to be following this year. If you bake cookies or something other than cookies during the holiday season. And let me know what your favorite sweet treats for the holiday season are, be they baked goods or otherwise. I'm going to do a little bit of a different layout on this one. Do you have a favorite Christmas cookie or Christmas dessert? Is it something you bake or something someone you know bakes? For example, I have a friend who makes pizzelles every year, and they're delicious and a favorite, and especially because I don't have to bake them myself. Alright, and I'm going to glue everybody down. Now, on a related note of sweet things at the holiday time, are there any particular candies or other confections that you like to eat during the holiday season? One of my family traditions is to receive a big bag of Twizzlers in your stocking for Christmas. This is something my grandmother used to do, and so now every year I put a large bag of Twizzlers in my sister's stocking, and she puts one in my stocking, because it's just not a Christmas stocking if it doesn't have a bag of Twizzlers. So are there any must-have candies that you either put in your family member stockings or just buy a bag of during the holiday season. Alright, and again, forgot to do the white pen, and this one's going to be a little bit more involved because everywhere there's snow, we've got to color in white. So leave me a comment and let me know about your favorite sweet treats during the holiday season. Tell me if you've got any baking traditions in your family, or if you just enjoy the baked goods of others. Now, in case you aren't familiar with how to leave a comment, if you are watching on a computer, you just need to scroll below the picture and there'll be a spot where you can click on to leave a comment. Similar with if you're watching on your phone, you can click on the little comment thing underneath the video and you'll be able to leave a comment. You can't leave comments if you are watching on your TV, however. Now, I didn't do these two houses because the stamp set comes with little snow bags. So I went ahead and stamped those and die cut those out. So I'm just going to add those on to these two houses and glue those on. And there's one more thing I want to do for both our cards. So there are two gingerbread monochromatic cards. And what I'm going to do is grab some Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White because I want to add some splatters. So I'm just going to add some water to this. Grab a paintbrush. Let me get my splat box up so that I don't end up having flecks of white paint all over my work surface. And I'm just going to add some flecks of white, and pretty much you can use watered down acrylic paint, gesso, whatever you have to create the snow. That didn't work as well as I'd hoped. I just wanted to clean it off her face because it was like smack dab in between her eyes and it worked okay. And that doesn't seem to be glued down all the way. And I'm going to set these guys aside and let the white splatter dry before we attach them to the card base. Okay, so our pieces are all dry, so we just need to attach them to card bases. And this is a piece of 8.5 by 7 cardstock folded in half along the 7 so that it's 8.5 by 3.5 for our finished card size. And I'm just going to use art glitter glue. As always, you can use whatever glue you prefer, and I'm just going to glue our cards onto the bases. That was not quite straight, but close enough. Just gonna trim this a little bit off. So there we go. There are two versions of a monochromatic Christmas card using browns and... Oh, that tree is not glued on. Apparently, did not glue that guy down. Let's go back and fix that. All right. Okay, so there are our two monochromatic Christmas cards using our Lawn Fawn Tiny Village and Gingerbread stamps. And in case you weren't aware, I do have a shop up on Ko-fi, that's Ko-fi. And I do have some Christmas cards in my shop if you are not up to making Christmas cards yourself this year. So please stop by and check it out. You can find a link in the description down below. It's also always linked on the About page for my YouTube channel. Or you can just go to ko-fi.com and search for Craft Nerd Creates, and you can find it that way. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.